Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Feels like I was holding my breath for the past, hour. It's over, right? Tyler Reddick won. He finally won a Cup Series race, right? They can't take that away, right? Oh gosh, there's still post-race inspection. I'll go back to holding my breath. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove, post-race Road America edition. Lots of fun stuff to get to, some great back and forths on track. We'll look at the points grid as we now have 8 races until the playoffs. We'll look at the top finishers and also talk about some drivers who did not live up to expectations today. We'll talk about this event as a whole, put this thing on the Groovy gauge, discuss the future of Road America at the very end. May talk a little bit about NBC, USA Network's broadcast, but I want to start with Tyler Reddick. As usual, we typically start by talking about the finish, or in this case, the race winner. Tyler Reddick finally got it done. I was waiting for a loose wheel, an ill-timed caution, a meteor strike, a blue turtle shell, something to ruin Tyler Reddick's race, but I'm happy to report that this time, no bad breaks came. This is Tyler Reddick's 3rd full-time season in the NASCAR Cup Series. This was his 92nd Cup Series start. He'd finished runner-up 5 times previously. He's been so close to getting that win in the past, as recently as earlier this season, Bristol Dirt, the most glaring example of a close call. But it took until today for him to finally break through and get that win, the first of what I think will be many. Maybe not this season. I could see him winning another race, maybe 2. We know Reddick will be with RCR next season, but come 2024, he will be one of the hottest free agents on the market. I see Reddick's equipment only getting better from here on out. The first of many, if you ask me. It feels like a lot of people forget that Tyler Reddick won 2 NASCAR Xfinity Series championships back-to-back. For 2 different teams. I mean, we forget he was with JRM in 2018 driving the 9 car. He won the season opener at Daytona and then didn't win another race until the finale at Homestead. Won the title, but then he moved to RCR, and around that time period, I think a lot of fans viewed Reddick as kind of an illegitimate champion. He wasn't the most consistent driver in 2018. He didn't win the most races either. So when he left JRM to go to RCR, at the time, I don't think many fans thought JRM or Hendrick was losing anything. Sure, there was raw talent and potential there, but we say that about a lot of drivers, and very few are able to truly refine that talent and become stars and make it to the Cup Series and win in the Cup Series. But Reddick went to RCR in 2019, won more races, was more consistent, and won another Xfinity Series championship. Since he's gotten to Cup, he's shown flashes of brilliance driving B to B+ level equipment. He made the playoffs last year in his sophomore season. This year, he's leading laps, running up front. He's been close to winning. Today, he finally breaks through. So what I'm trying to say is it's been a long time coming. Remember this past winter, before this season began, it was Kyle Larson, the defending series champion, who put everyone on notice. He said that Tyler Reddick was poised to have a tremendous season. He's been fast, been very inconsistent, but today he gets that win that effectively locks him into the playoffs. And most of all, he had to earn it today. This was not a fluky win by any means. He had to beat Chase Elliott, widely regarded as the best road course racer in the series today. Elliott had the track position. His pit crew even held that track position for him. Reddick came out right behind him, so Reddick's pit crew did their job too. But Reddick had to work and work and work Chase Elliott, kind of forced Elliott into a small mistake. Opened the door, he was able to squeeze through, and then for the final, 15, 20 laps or so, and these are long laps. A lap at Road America is more than 2 minutes. He had to hold Chase Elliott off. Elliott was never more than about a second or so back until the final couple of laps. Reddick began to really pull away. But even when Reddick took the lead, he was still under constant pressure from Chase Elliott. That's why this win was so impressive. The team got it done in crunch time, but the driver held steady under immense pressure from one of the best in the business. So congratulations to Tyler Reddick, the entire number 8 team. I believe if you live near a Cheddar's restaurant, I believe this means free chicken tenders. Maybe tomorrow? I don't know how the deal works, but I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some free tenders before long. Happy 4th of July, America. Tyler Reddick and Cheddar's are delivering. And that's not a sponsor. I just love chicken tenders, and they got some good ones. Even better when they're free. This win also blows up the playoff grid, but before we get to that, here are some of your other top finishers. I gotta give Chase Elliott his props. He battled some steering issues and maybe even a soft fading brake pedal in the second half. His car, as fast as it was not perfect, yet for 60-70% of this race, Chase was dominant. Would have won stage 1, would have won stage 2 if not for, pitch strategy that you need to play at road courses. He had a 9-second lead in stage 1, had a 5 or 6 second lead in stage 2. It wasn't until stage 3 when suddenly Reddick seemed to maybe have something for him, and that was a shock. I didn't believe my eyes at first. Elliott was that fast. He deserves a ton of credit for this weekend. He won the pole. He probably led the most laps. I don't know, maybe Reddick caught him at the end. And he did all that with an imperfect race car. So, as great a win as this is for Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott's, I think, still the best road course racer in the Cup Series today, at least consistently. Great run for Elliott. Really a great run for Chevrolet across the board. You see Kyle Larson, another Hendrick car there, finishing third. He was just kind of there in the top 5 all day long. Just a solid day for Kyle Larson. He kind of got into a tussle with Ross Chastain, who you also see finishing in the top 5, along with his Trackhouse teammate Daniel Suarez. Suarez backing up that Sonoma win, proving that it was no fluke. Same goes for like Chris Buescher, Mike McDowell, got good finishes as well. But back to Larson and Chastain, I didn't see exactly what happened earlier in the race. I know the two were racing around each other quite a bit, especially on restarts. I'm sure Chastain ruffled Larson's feathers a little bit. There was one point where Chastain overshot, I think, turn 5 and kind of ran Alex Bowman wide, Larson's Hendrick teammate. He kind of gave a little wave, apologized for that. Chastain being aggressive, but at one point in this race, Kyle Larson went full Ross Chastain on Ross Chastain and just sent him off into the grass. Like he just got tired of racing him. It was obviously on purpose. He meant to run him off the track and didn't really ruin Chastain's race. In fact, he just slotted in right there behind Larson in 4th. So, no harm really, no foul really. It sounded like it was payback more than anything, but I just don't exactly know what it was payback for. Anyway, that was one of those back and forths I was talking about. I mentioned Buescher and McDowell, a couple of the best finishing Fords. Great runs for them. We know they're good at road courses now, apparently. Austin Cindric, another Ford driver there, finishing 7th. Rookie, but we know he's great at road courses. I think last year in this race, when he was driving that 33 car on just like a one-off part-time schedule, I think he led a couple of laps here. So not surprising to see him up in the top 10 in Penske equipment. Allmendinger, of course, great road course racer, gets a top 10. And Kevin Harvick, I believe he started out near the rear of the field, but steadily was able to work his way forward, gets a solid top 10. Another driver who was very fast late at Sonoma, solid run here at Road America. What is up with Toyota? Martin Truex Jr. there, 13th, is the best finishing Toyota in this race. Kyle Busch, I'm pretty sure he finished outside the top 30. Nope, he got to 29th. I know he had 1 or 2 penalties and also started at the rear and also spun himself out, so he had some issues today. But what is up with Toyota? Truex, I know, had a top 10 car. They kind of short pit at the end there, which made it look like their tires faded and they lost some spots at the end, which is why they got 13th. But like Truex, he should be top 5 at every road course, and he's not. He was like 26th at Sonoma, which is one of his best tracks, 13th here today, never really a top 5 threat. What's up with Toyota on the road courses? Maybe it's not that big a deal. There is only one road course in the playoffs, but boy, you'd like to be good at the Roval when it gets to it. Hamlin was 17th, Bell was 18th. I know Hamlin had a couple penalties in a row for driving through too many pit boxes. He lost a lot of track position. It was tough to pass out there. When she lost all that track position, it was very hard to get any significant amount of it back. Christopher Bell had a slow pit stop, I think, during the final cycle. They had some issues with the right rear, cost him a few seconds. That cost him some time as well. Bubba Wallace had a disastrous day. We don't think of Bubba as a great road course racer, but he was in too hot a couple of times. He got taken out once by Joey Logano. That one wasn't his fault. And then he pulled off the track in stage 3. I don't actually know what the issue was. I assume some sort of mechanical failure, but just a bad day for Toyota across the board. Also a bad day for Brad Keselowski, I have to mention. He had a pit penalty, then I think he had a flat tire, and then he hit the wall. He might have hit the wall, which led to the flat tire. He was off track a couple of times today, that's all I can say. But those are your top finishers. Now let's talk about the playoff grid for a second. Because Tyler Reddick winning just about blows this whole thing up. He was, I think, 19th, 18th in points coming into today. Now he is, I think, 7th on the playoff grid because he has a couple stage wins this year. I think he'd have like 7 playoff points to his credit if the postseason began today. So now Kevin Harvick, despite a solid top 10 run today, is outside the top 16. Harvick and Eric Almirola, both SHR cars who've been fairly consistent this year, are now outside the top 16. And that puts, a couple of Gibbs guys like Christopher Bell right on the bubble. Truex has a decent buffer zone, but boy, with 8 races to go and some pretty fast cars now beneath them, a couple new winners, which we keep saying, oh, the new winners are going to have to stop. There's no way we get to 15, 16 winners. We might. I've been saying for a couple months now, we're going to get to 15 winners. There's too many fast cars. Blaney hasn't won. Harvick hasn't won. Truex hasn't won. Bell, Jones, Dillon, a couple of those guys are going to win this year. I believe it. That's why Ryan Blaney's staying out to win, I think, stage 2 and collect not only the playoff point, but also 10 regular season points. I actually think was a decent strategy call, because if anyone here is going to point their way in, I think Blaney's probably the only one who should feel safe, and adding a few more points in the bank only makes you feel more secure. There are 2 more road courses and 2 more super speedways before the playoffs begin. Not to mention New Hampshire, which last year produced a wild card winner. Not to mention Michigan, which some say may race like a super speedway. Oh, and don't forget Pocono, Pennsylvania, the trickiest triangle. If you're Truex, Bell for sure, and lower, you gotta win a race to make the playoffs. I think that's where we're at. Anyway, share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Which bubble drivers are you watching closely these next few weeks? Which driver surprised you the most with their performance today, good or bad? Leave a comment down below. Before we put this race on the Groovy gauge, I do want to talk about Road America for a second, and I want to talk about the length of this race. This race was roughly 2.5 hours long. The clock I had said 2 hours and 35 minutes roughly from green flag to the final checkered flag. 2.5 hours for a Cup Series race. And think about it, if you watch this race at home or if you were at the track in person, did it feel any different from a typical Cup Series race that usually goes over 3 hours? No, I don't think it did, at least not to me sitting on my couch. And this was an average race, but the fact that it was only 2.5 hours long, in my opinion, kept it from dragging. To me, 2.5 hours is enough time to enjoy a really good race, but it's also not too much time that a bad race begins to drag and you start to check your watch and fall asleep. This should be the goal. Every single race outside of the crown jewels should either have their distances reduced, have their procedures changed, so that they end around the 2.5 hour mark typically. I feel like today's race helped that case. I also think NBC Sports did a pretty good job with their broadcast. I didn't get to watch any of last week's broadcast because I was at the race in person, but today's race on USA Network I thought was well portrayed. Part of it is these cars just look really cool at Road America. I also didn't really watch much of last year's Road America on TV because I was there in person as well, but seeing these cars go up over those hills, the camera shots, the selections they had, the cars look great. It looks cinematic at times. This is just a really picturesque track. But I thought the commentary was solid. There was a few hiccups, a number of times where they just called the wrong number or the wrong driver's name. But I thought they maintained a serious tone and a pretty decent intensity throughout, even when things got kind of spread out up front. They kept every corner interesting, or at least more interesting than maybe it otherwise would have been. So overall, I was pretty pleased with USA NBC's production today. Now, what I do have a problem with, and this is going to be an ongoing conversation, where these races are broadcast and the lack of communication, that's a problem. Like, I saw a number of tweets, a number of comments from people today who thought this race, like last week's race at Nashville, was going to be on Peacock as well. If you have that $5 or $10 a month Peacock subscription, they thought this race would be available on it. It wasn't, from what I've heard. You can only watch today's race if you pay for traditional cable and have USA Network. It's just getting too complicated. If I pay for cable, I can already get NBC. You don't even need cable to get main NBC. Like, there's no reason for me to buy Peacock if I have cable. But if I want to ditch cable and just buy Peacock, well, now I can't watch half the races at the end of this season because a lot of them are going to be on USA exclusive. So I just don't understand the business model. Are you trying to get people to pay for Peacock and USA Network? If that's the case, I think consumers are smarter than that and they're not going to pay for both. And as a result, you're going to lose out on eyeballs. You're going to lose out on subscriptions to your brand new shiny streaming service. I just don't get it. What's equally frustrating is that for the races that are on NBC, the pre and post race shows seem to exclusively belong to Peacock. So that's what NBC wants. They want fans to pay not only for traditional cable so they can get all the USA coverage and races, but they also want fans to pay for Peacock or else they won't get pre and post race coverage for the select NBC races. It's not good. The consumer's losing out. I hope in the near future NBC's just puts every race on Peacock, so if I want, I can ditch cable and just pay the $5, $10 directly to NBC and get all the races, regardless of if they're on network or broadcast. I know this is confusing, but if you've been trying to watch the last couple weeks' races and you had a hard time finding them, you probably understand what I'm trying to say. The communication has to be better, and quite frankly, the service has to be better, in my opinion, but the broadcast was actually good today. The production was solid. The distribution is a problem. Anyway, lastly, let's put this race on the Groovy gauge. Back in the studio where she belongs, this was an average race. A lot's been made of Road America's future the past couple of weeks. Ever since that Adam Stern report that NASCAR doesn't have a contract with this track past this year, this could be the last Road America race indefinitely. The Chicago street course may replace it on the schedule. Since those reports, everyone's been either defending or taking shots at Road America. And for the last couple weeks, everyone's been defending it. Oh, you can't drop Road America. It was a big success last year, 100,000 fans on race day. It was a solid race, a cool new historic venue. Then today, I feel like the tune's kind of changed because last year's race was okay. It was decent. This year's race, it was okay, had moments. But neither race at Road America, I'd say, have been super entertaining. Like, if not for Tyler Reddick going for his first career win, this race probably would be below a 50. But like Tyler Reddick, if you replace him with Joey Logano, say it was Joey Logano versus Chase Elliott, and it was Logano running away with it in the closing laps, it just wouldn't have had the same emotional weight, I suppose. So Reddick being the guy involved with Chase Elliott at the end there helped this race out. I'm gonna give it a 55%. There were some great battles mid-pack, and NBC did a decent job of showing them. I'm sure it was more fun if you were there in person, especially if you brought your lawn chair, had some shade, had some cheese curds, and you were sitting there by turn 5 and got to see all the chaos and craziness through there. I'm sure you had a great time. But watching at home on TV, it felt like there were long stretches where just not much was going on. And Road America, again, is picturesque. It looks great, very pretty pictures, but not always a ton of substance. Big gaps between cars, drivers complaining of dirty air. That's just gonna become a common thing in the 21st century. It was a very mediocre race. So while I still want Road America to stay, because I think for the in-person experience, it's incredibly unique, and I think it fits the 4th of July weekend really well, the racing product on track today didn't help its defense very much. I'm gonna give it a 55%, but I look forward to hearing what you guys thought of today's race at Road America. That's gonna do it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Got some different style content coming out here in the next few days. I'll also be in Nashville next week for the SRX, so you get some SRX content thrown in as well. Also, big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Couldn't do this show without your support every single month. Okay, I've stopped holding my breath. Is inspection complete? Please tell me he passed. Nobody's failed. No winners have failed this year. Fingers crossed. I'm gonna start breathing again. I need to. It's healthy to breathe oxygen. Congrats to Tyler Reddick. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Have a happy and very safe 4th of July, folks.